Welcome to the Learn Tarot with Moxxie podcast, where you can learn to read the tarot for yourself and for others. Here we look at the tarot from all angles, and I share the very best ways to use it to work through past trauma and create the life that you love. So join me. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Learn Tarot with Moxxie podcast. My name is Michelle and I am here today and I am excited because for the first day and 3 days in a row, I do not have to do my hair and makeup. No video calls, no interviews, no nothing. So I am very happily sitting here in my sweatshirt and my jeans and getting ready to share some information with you. So could not be happier. This is going to be a busy episode with a lot of fun topics. I'm going to share, first of all, definitive proof that journaling works. I have a couple announcements to make. I wanted to talk about an interesting question I was asked recently, which is, what is the best way to memorize all 78 tarot cards? So we got a lot of good stuff to talk about. And later I will be announcing how to get a free reading. What we're going to be doing is a monthly free reading that will be of your question. It'll be up on the show as part of one of the episodes so we can all learn about how to use the cards. We'll get into, which card is in which position, why it's there, and what it is that it's trying to tell us in this particular situation. And of course, everything will be kept completely confidential. And let's see what else. I think that's it for now. So put on your comfy pants, grab yourself your favorite beverage, and we'll get started. I get a lot of my ideas for the podcast and for social media through what comes in for me during my meditations. And I'm finding that not everything that comes through in a meditation is worthy of a full podcast episode, but I feel that it's worthy enough to be sharing it with you in some form or another. So I'm going to start sort of bringing in these little insights that I have, things that I wanted to share, things I've noticed, observations, and hopefully they will be helpful for you. So we're going to start today's episode with one of those. And this is something that I had been told before and never really put the two together until recently. And that is that excitement can feel like anxiety. So let that sink in for a minute. Getting excited about something can leave us feeling similarly to the way we feel when we're anxious. And I think it's hitting home for me now more than it has in the past, because we've been in a constant state of anxiety, right? The entire world has been in a constant state of some sort of anxiety, some sort of chaos, some sort of challenge, really for a number of years now. And our tension level is high, and that's an understatement, right? So we're all running around in this anxiety-ridden default, this space where we just get used to feeling anxious, where we just become accustomed to having that hum of tension in the background, right? So when we're lucky enough to have a lull in the chaos, whether it's a personal one or a global one, and we're able to maybe expand our vision beyond sometimes what feels like the day-to-day survival of just getting through the freaking day, and start looking to the future, to start looking to what we want to create instead of what we are or where we're stuck. Where do we want to be? How do we want to be? How do we want to feel? Well, we start looking at all of those things, and ideally, we have a sense of anticipation, right? A sense of sort of being reborn, right? There's a spark under us where there wasn't that spark before. And suddenly, we're feeling anxious again. And this has been happening to me lately. And so I wanted to share it with you. I have been in this space of huge transition, huge creation of what's going on in my life, creating the life that I want to live and being the person that I want to be. And I am recognizing that I am really, really, really fortunate to have this opportunity, to have the luxury in my life and the space and all of those things to be able to take this time and really focus on myself. But what I've noticed as I have been doing this process of exploring what I want my future to look like, of starting to recognize that in some ways, my age gives me permissions that I didn't have when I was in my 20s, 30s, and 40s. I had a whole lot more responsibilities when I was in my 20s, 30s, and 40s. I am what a lot of people might be considered retired now. I'm not retirement age, but I'm close. What I'm doing right now is for me and for you. It's not for my boss. It's not for my kids. It's not for my husband. It's not for anyone but us. And on some levels, it feels selfish. And on other levels, it feels very, very exciting to be creating something brand new. And in meditation the other day, I'm just sitting there thinking, why the heck am I feeling this way? What is going on? And I literally asked myself, okay, is this excitement or is this anxiety? And from there, I was able to tease things apart enough that I was at least able to recognize that it was a combination of the two. My life is not perfect. There are certainly things about which I am anxious, just like you. So, those things hover in the background. But what I did notice is that there is also excitement there. And it is an unfamiliar enough feeling that it can be uncomfortable. So I just wanted to share that with you and bring that up and let you know that that's been my experience, and suggest maybe that when you are feeling anxious, sometimes it's like, well, hell yeah, I'm feeling anxious. I just did this, that, or the other, or this, whatever happened. Obviously. But if you're in a state where you're like, what the heck is going on? I don't know what is going on. I'm feeling anxious, but I don't really think I have any huge reason to. My this, that, or the other thing is going the direction that I want, full steam ahead. Well, that excitement, right, could be being interpreted by your nervous system as anxiety. So this is just an invitation for you to take a look at it, to examine it the next time it pops up for you, and see if looking at it from a different perspective might be helpful. So as we're navigating, trying to figure out if we're anxious or if we're excited, we may begin to see some patterns. We may begin to see some cycles. And the cyclical nature of life has been in my space so much lately. It's just been this synchronicity that keeps popping up and popping up and popping up. So I wanted to share a little bit with you about that because I think it's odd, but kind of cool at the same time. We need to start paying attention, I think, to the cycles in our lives and start to look at the tools that we can use to help us navigate those cycles in our lives. So yesterday, I was interviewed by Pearl from Conversations with Pearl for her podcast. And we got talking about journaling. And she asked me if I was a journaler, and I was telling her, oh, yeah, yes, absolutely. That I had literally not too long ago found journals of mine from more than 30 years ago. Journals of mine from before my first marriage. And of course, she wanted, the dirt on that. Well, what did you, what happened? What do you remember? What have you learned about yourself? All of those kinds of things, right? And it was a really cool example of, or cool illustration of how our lives really are cyclical. And I've heard someone use the word spiralic. And what happened when I read through years and years and years of journals, literally, a couple things. First of all, I just wanted to give my younger self a big fat hug because she was scared and she was frustrated and she did not know what the heck she was doing. So, first of all, yeah, big hug to her. But what I realized is that there are observable patterns that I've been able to find in those journals, in how my life has gone, in ebbs and flows of, me pushing for autonomy, me pushing for trying to figure out who I am. And it was really enlightening. So I know that some of you probably roll your eyes when I go on and on and on about journaling, but truly, it was a really rewarding and enlightening experience. And it also gave me more compassion for myself as a younger person and allowed me to stop being so darn hard on myself. With my more mature self, just sort of grab a hold of her and say, hey, we have all screwed up. We have all made mistakes. We have all made choices that we shouldn't have made. And also, you have the power to not do those things anymore. Now that you recognize those things, you have the power. And I think also it's really helped me realize how little confidence I had in myself and how little I valued myself. And it's a really cool point of comparison between then and now. So 3 hours after that, literally, I jumped into another podcast interview. And this time I was interviewing Lisa Jara of Spirals of Life. And Lisa's entire coaching practice is built on this premise of our life is a spiralic or circular or cyclical event. And she talks about tracking our moon cycles at different phases in our lives and the different things that tracking those moon cycles can do, and the interesting things that we can learn about ourselves as we track these cycles. So that was number 2. Then I was getting ready to publish the episode for the personal tarot year card episode, that one. And it occurred to me again that we are into this phase of cycles, of looking at our lives as a series of hopefully upwardly spiraling. With each twist of the screw, we become more enlightened, something along those lines, where as the screw of our lives, that's really kind of messed up, but you know what I mean, does its thing, we hopefully are learning with every trip up that spiral. All right, so let's talk for just a second about the free readings. I've done this before on the podcast, and I didn't really like the way that it was done. I was finding myself, honestly, sort of at the mercy of questions that were not necessarily the types of questions that I specialize in answering, meaning the questions that people were asking were much more oriented toward traditional tarot. What will happen when? Does this person this? The traditional divinatory type of tarot, which I enjoy, which is fun, which I still like to do, but it's not the focus of the podcast. So when I was doing it that way, I was picking a name and then they were sending me their question. And then I was obliged to answer that question regardless of whether I felt it was a good fit for the podcast. We're going to switch things up a little bit, and I am going to ask you, if you are interested in a free reading, to log on to the website and complete a form that is basically your email and your question. So I can look through the questions as they come in and answer the questions that seem most relevant to most people in relationship to the podcast. So that looks like asking questions about personal growth. How can I help myself to get to this point? What do I need to do to achieve X? How can I learn to love myself more? Those types of questions. So if you have any questions about what types of questions to ask, you should feel free to pop back through some of the episodes. There's at least one, maybe more than one episode about asking good questions. And there might even be some information on my website. So if you are interested, then in the show notes, you will see a link. You can log on, you can enter your question, and then we're not going to start for a while because it's going to take people a little while to start getting their questions in. But let's say, a month from now, we will be doing a reading for someone who sends in a question. And I will look forward to that because I miss doing one-on-one readings. Okay, that was the big announcement. So you'll just have to go over to the Moxxie Coaching website and take a look at the form, complete that, and I will let you know if you are the winner. All right. So, the big question, the question of the week. The question, according to the internet, when I started to look at how many people had been asking this question. And the question is, essentially, how in the heck do I go about memorizing what I need to memorize from 78 individual cards that all have their own individual meanings, that all have their own individual symbolism? That's a lot, right? How do I go about doing that? Well, I have a few different ways that I suggest. But first, I want to talk about whether or not you should even bother. Do I need to bother learning the card meanings? And first of all, it is a very, very personal decision. If you want to read the tarot 100% intuitively, more power to you. Absolutely go ahead and do that. There's a lot of value in that. Both tarot and oracle cards, using them from a place of intuition. And in my personal opinion, we get more out of our readings that are related to our own personal growth and development when we have an understanding of the card meanings. Actually, I think that for any type of reading, knowing the card meanings will enrich the reading. It will add levels of complexity that would not be there for a purely intuitive reading. So that's why I teach people how to read the tarot. And it's been a delicate dance for me because I don't want people who want to use the tarot intuitively to feel like there's something wrong with that. I'm all about offering you the information that will help you empower yourself even more. I think part of it is my nature as someone who likes things on one hand extremely organized and black and white, right? When when I first started learning how to use the tarot cards, it was comforting to me because I could use my flashcards. It was very clear cut. This card means this thing. This symbol means this. And it sort of gave me a structure, right? The downside of that was that it wasn't until I had been using the cards for a while that I was able to get a little bit more flexible, a little bit more creative. It took me a little longer to open up the intuitive side of me, I think, because I was so focused on learning the card meanings. So there is a balance there. But once I had those card meanings down, and down I say for the most part, right? Everyone is going to have a different idea of what, quote, knowing the 78 cards means, but whatever it means for you. I felt and still feel like I was then working from a position of strength, of working from a position of this is the foundation that I need. And now that I have this foundation, I can take it and build on it with my intuition, with my spirituality, with my art, with whatever it is I want to use. I look at it more like you could make a pot of soup by instinctually throwing a bunch of stuff into a pot, adding some water, and cooking it. Or you could make a soup that is based on a good stock with a good protein and a good grain or whatever, and be intentional about it. And the final result is going to be richer, deeper, and more complex. So now that I have stepped off my soapbox, how the heck do we memorize all of these cards? Flashcards, I hate to say it, don't throw rotten tomatoes at me, but I swear flashcards are the first place to start. And a very simple way of creating these flashcards, if you have the luxury of having an extra Rider Smith Waite deck, or if you have the luxury of going out and purchasing a new Rider Smith Waite deck, use the backside of that deck, or however you want to do it. Create your flashcards with the actual deck. Don't worry about writing out individual flashcards with pictures in them. Oh my gosh, you'll drive yourself crazy. So you can, what I did actually is I would just write something along the edges or on the bottom or a couple keywords that would help me trigger whatever it is I needed to trigger to let my brain pull all of the pieces of this card together. You can, you can write things like, excuse me, you can note the symbolism, you can note just the basic keywords of what it means. However you want to do it, at whatever level you want to learn the tarot, using flashcards is a great way to do it. When you're taking the time to learn the cards and you're looking at a stack of 78 cards and thinking, yeah, that's a lot. What I suggest you do is break your deck up into chunks. So, and start wherever you want. I would probably start with the major arcana first, but you've got your major arcana, and then you've got your minor arcana. And within your minor arcana, you could split that down into your court cards. And then you could split down into the four suits. So you are not feeling quite so overwhelmed with the task, it's easier to remember 16 cards and start working with those than it is to try and remember all 78 at the same time. So you're chunking up the amount of information that you're trying to absorb and retain. If you start with the major arcana, that's a nice place because there are quite a few things tarot-wise you can do that just involve the major arcana. You can start looking at all of those things, your birth card, your year card, your soul card, all of those types of things. So that's a great place to start. Another thing you can do, and this is a valuable exercise, and yes, it does involve more writing, but to write out your interpretation of each card and type it if you want, because it takes a long time to handwrite everything. But once you get to the point where you're starting to get more comfortable with the card meanings, then it's time to start testing yourself a little bit and maybe randomly pulling a card and typing out or speaking out or whatever it is, everything that you know about this card. What do you know about this card, or what information or what intuitive additions have you made to the traditional meaning of this card? And start playing with that a little bit. You've got your traditional meaning that you can always lean on when you get stuck in a reading. But then what is above and beyond that traditional meaning? What's there for you in relationship to that card that will help you integrate the card, its meaning, and how to use it into your readings? Now, it sounds silly, but daydreaming, or even writing down a conversation with yourself and with the card, between yourself and the card, whether it's the individual in the card or the setting or whatever. Being silly with it, being fun with it. For example, you pick up the 4 of Pentacles and you say, dude, why are you so glum? What is the problem? You're sitting there, you have a long face, you're clutching your pentacles like it's life or death. And behind you, I'm noticing there's like all of this beautiful wealth, and it looks to me like it's available to you. And here you are sitting, being all grumpy and feeling this sense of, or acting like anyway, you're feeling this sense of lack and like somebody's out to get your stuff. So right or wrong, right? It doesn't matter, but just start to narrate inside of these cards. It'll do 2 things. It's going to help you, actually it's going to do 3 things. It's going to help you develop more of your own personal meaning of the card that is meshed with the traditional. It's going to help you get to know the characters in the cards and the nuances of the cards much better. And lastly, as you begin to get more comfortable creating narrations around the cards, I think what you're going to notice is that your readings become more rich, that you're able to articulate the connections between the cards a little bit more, to connect a card in one position in a spread with a card in a different position in a spread. So much of reading the tarot is about looking at what's in front of us and being able to tell the story of what's there. So yes, it's great to be able to say, well, we have 3 cards, past, present, and future. These are the 3 cards, and these are the definitions of the 3 cards. That's a fantastic start. But from there, we want your skills to develop into, well, these are the 3 cards, and these two relate to one another because of this, and this is how. And these two relate to one another because of that, and this is how. And this is going to impact your reading because of. So it's this elevation of your skills that you will begin to develop as you just play, right? As you just get silly with the cards. Court cards often are some of the most troubling cards for people. And who hasn't frozen, right, when you have started to turn over your cards and, 4 out of the 5 are court cards? It's a little confrontational sometimes. It's like, oh, crap. I'm nervous enough about these already, and now I'm having to figure out, how 4 court cards are fitting into this situation. What I have found is the best way to learn the court cards is to assign a personality from someone in real life, in history, in theater, in literature, doesn't matter. Assign that court card a character that you feel displays the characteristics of that card. So, for example, the Queen of Swords is a very stern, highly intelligent woman. She doesn't take any crap. She expects answers when she asks questions, and she does not look kindly on somebody who's going to give her a line of crap. Is there anybody in your life, in the media, a famous personality, somebody that you can associate with the Queen of Swords? It's just a simple way to trick your brain. If it's like, oh, there's the Queen of Swords, that's so-and-so, and that person behaves this way, then it's an easier way. It takes the pressure off, and it's not quite that deer in the headlights feeling when you turn over a bunch of court cards all at the same time. So, maybe the Queen of Swords is a strict grandmother from your life. Maybe she was somebody who, really just made you toe the line, man. Maybe it's a stereotypical school teacher, Catholic school teacher, rapping the knuckles or something. Or I like to think of her as Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the former Supreme Court Justice, who was just amazing with her tough as steel and her little doily collars. I just loved her. So, really pick someone who resonates with you as a representative of this card, and you might begin to find that it's a little bit easier to basically just to remember and again to start working with the cards from the perspective of the story that you're telling. So ultimately, it comes down to whether or not you want to learn the card meanings. It's a lot of work, but I feel like it's well worth it. Whether, if you're reading for someone else, if you are, quote, calling yourself a tarot reader, in my opinion, it's necessary. It's the appropriate thing to do. People are going to assume that you have done that. That's the core of tarot reading. And intuition is incredibly important, but it's above and beyond the card meanings. So if you are reading for someone else, I really do think it's appropriate. If you are reading for yourself, if you are interested in the tarot only for your own use in your own personal growth and development, then it's completely up to you which direction you want to go. Remember that the earlier episodes of the podcast offers a full beginner tarot curriculum. If you're looking for some inspiration and some tips about, how do I do this, or help me out a little bit more with the meaning of this card or that card, we get into all of that information. So you may want to take a look at some of the earlier episodes. And I think that is about it. Announcement. Briefly, the course development course is still up on the website for free. If you are a business owner or a teacher or a crafter or anyone who has been wanting to teach their own course but not knowing where to begin, hop over to the Moxxie website and take a look. There is a free course that is an introduction to all things online course development. The course is free until the end of the month of February 2023, and I'm piloting it right now. I had a couple people take it, and a few more people are taking it right now. Just wanting to make sure everything flows well and it's get any constructive criticism that I need so I can make changes. But it is there and available if you know of anyone who's interested, or maybe you have been considering starting your own course, teaching something that you're passionate about, something that feeds your soul. All right, everyone, you have a fabulous week. I look forward to getting some questions from you, getting some questions that we can answer with the tarot. And I think that's about it. So you all have a fantastic week. I look forward to talking to you again next week, and